the Housing Rights Committee, returning a call from Charlie.
Hey,
You're Charlie?
yes, I am.
Hi, Charlie. So I checked our database and you're not in it. So is that correct in assuming that you've not used our services before?
I'm not sure. Your voice actually sounds familiar. I thought I was calling a different service. So, um,
Do you have more than one phone number?
I'm sorry. What?
Do you have more than one phone number?
I do not. Not that would be listed with you.
What's your last name, please?
Well, if you don't, it doesn't realistically. It doesn't really matter right now.
It matters to me.
Well, do you have? So you don't have 415. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So I'm not in the database.
Okay.
Okay.
Hold on for a moment, please. So there are a few things I need to ask you to be sure you're talking to the right person and to kind of prepare for the rest of the database. One, are you a tenant paying rent in San Francisco?
Yes.
Two, have you received any documents that have a deadline on them, like 3-day notice to pay or quit?
I have and I haven't, right? Because of COVID. So I have, but I'm not. One of the reasons why I'm calling is because I don't know what the real status is of anything is.
Well, have you received any formal notice from your landlord that they want you to leave?
Yes. So that's what I'm saying to you. Yes, I have received 3-day notices. Yes, there was an open eviction. Because of COVID, I haven't heard anything more, and that's actually one of the reasons why I'm calling.
Okay, so when was the last such notice?
It would have been, I believe, in November.
Okay, have you applied for COVID assistance?
Yes, and actually that's one of the issues, but yes.
Okay, well, so long as you've done that, they cannot go forward with an eviction.
Yeah, and that's actually, yes, I understand
Okay.
that.
I'd like to give you some reference points, sources, to be sure you have all the resources available to you. One is an organization called Tenants Together. You can just find that on the internet.
Uh-huh.
The second one is the website for the rent board, sfrb. I believe it's org, but if not, gov.
Okay.
And the other is our website, hrcsf.org.
Yeah, I'm aware of all that. What's confusing is, so the reason why you're getting a call is I saw an ad that says, if you're being harassed by your landlord, to call you. So that's why I'm calling you, because I'm being harassed by my landlord. That's the main issue.
Okay.
That's why you're being called. So that's what I'm trying to kind of address. Obviously, there's other issues that would arise from any situation like that, but that's why I'm calling you.
Okay, I hear you. I hear you. Let me get through our database and get this out of the way because the Mayor's Office of Housing finances us, and they require us to ask these questions. Some of them are pretty intrusive. Some you may refuse to answer. Others you're required to answer. This information is critical to understanding what the ethics of our organization is. While we signed an agreement with them to provide statistical information, nothing with your name attached ever goes out of our office other than in certain repair cases. But you'd be aware of that before you agree to it, okay?
Okay.
So let me go through this as quickly as possible. And this involves me and typing on a computer. None of those things go well. Okay. May I have your date of birth, please?
Sure.
Your primary language is?
English.
Okay. And did you find out about us through the rent board, or how did you find out about us? Internet?
I just said it, and more out of curiosity because I'm speaking to you and I just said it, and it's important to kind of understand why you got called in the first place. So, do you recall what I said, how I found out about you guys?
No.
Oh, okay. I did just within less than a few seconds ago said that I found out through the reason why I was calling the phone number I called was because I saw an ad on Muni about that simply said, if you're being harassed by your landlord, call this number.
And that was our number.
Exactly.
That was printed in like a newspaper or something?
On Muni.
Okay. It's something I don't know about. Not surprising.
You don't know Muni, or you don't know about the ad?
Are you a lawyer?
I that's completely irrelevant to the question I asked you.
Not really. Not to me, it isn't. But
What do you mean not to you it isn't? It's simply irrelevant to the conversation we're having. We're having a conversation about the fact that I am being harassed by my landlord, and you're asking on why I was calling the number I called, and I said it's because I saw it on Muni, which is the public transportation in San Francisco, and you said something I don't know about. And I asked you whether it was that you don't know about Muni, the public transportation in San Francisco, or you just simply did not know that there were ads that said that that's the phone number that you should call if you were being harassed. It is very relevant because I am being harassed and I do need to find a solution to it. Do you understand that?
I understand. I've been doing this 30 years, sir. Although it sounds like to you, I started yesterday, but I have been doing this a long time. So let's move on, get this over with, and we're going to figure out what to do about the harassment, because that's why I'm here.
Yeah, well, I'm also here again because I'm being harassed and you are adding to it. So, in other words, what you're doing right now is you're disregarding the fact that it is important for me to make sure that things are being done so that I can solution the harassment and not have it be ongoing.
Would you like a different counselor? Would you like a different counselor?
I'm not really sure if that solves it. What I'm trying to have an understanding from you is why you feel it's irrelevant to answer a direct question, especially given the fact that the way harassment works is by not answering direct questions as you're doing. You said you've been doing this for 30 years. Then I would think that you could understand that the way that you get into a situation in which a tenant and landlord or landlord is harassing a tenant is by not answering any questions or responding to any questions. Otherwise, there would be no need to seek help elsewhere.
I do not wish to add to your stress. Let me finish these questions, and we'll get to the how to figure out what to do about this situation you're in. Okay.
Okay.
Your first name is Charlie, Charlie.
Yes.
And your last name? Do you have an email address you would like to share with us?
Sure. It's also Charlie, one word. So ALSOCHARLIE at yahoo.com.
How many people do you share your space with, please?
Well, that's where it's kind of complicated. So, one of the issues is that my mother is on the lease and has mental health issues, and the landlord is kind of taking advantage of that. So, on the lease, there are two people, but I currently live, as far as who resides here, is basically me.
Where does your mother live?
In Florida.
Okay. Does the landlord know that?
Well, that's again one of the issues with the harassment, because they kind of gone back and forth unto their understanding. Um, Being the case that the current landlord wasn't the original owner that I signed the lease with.
Okay. Here's the question. Is your mother's legal residence where she is in Florida or where you are?
It's always been somewhat both, from the beginning of the lease, because my mother, I moved in when I was in college. It was a private owner at the time. Um, because of that, my mother has always been the financial responsible party for for the rent payments, and I've always been the resident. In other words, she's legally responsible for paying the rent, and I live here.
Was that in your lease? Actually, that she was there's a name for it.
It says something like on our particular lease, she's the financial obligator or something like that.
Okay, all right. But is your name mentioned in the lease?
Yes, we're both on the lease. Like I said, it's a pretty common. It was common at the time that I was in college, thing to do, because it that way, it doesn't matter if I pay the rent or not. The landlord would always have the ability. Like technically, that's why you're being called. So technically, that's one of the situations that the landlord's taking advantage of, in the sense of technically the landlord could evict me for whatever reason and still demand payment from my mother. And that's one of the bigger issues that's happening right now, because again, there's an issue in which the landlord seems to be taking advantage of the fact that my mother has mental health issues, and is also negotiating with my mother in from what I can determine, is fraudulent terms, because there has been times in which they're receiving both COVID funds and funds from my mother. And because of my mother's mental health status, she's not able to kind of understand that the landlord is basically getting double payments. And currently it's unknown how that even looks on the ledger or what's going on, because they're not even responding to any inquiries.
Okay, we're going to get to that. I just really need to finish this document. Sorry.
Sure.
What is the total estimated income of you and your mother?
I am unsure. Because currently I have heart failure. So I am disabled, and it's kind of one of the issues that I'm dealing with. I'm disabled, and I don't have an income coming in.
Okay.
And my mother.
Taxes?
I'm sorry. What?
Do you file taxes?
I have not in a while, because I haven't worked now for about 2 years. And so as far as what my income is.
Could you just give me a number for your mother?
Yeah, I would say, let's say, I don't know. Let's say 200,000.
Okay, that's fine. Do that. Look, this happens to be one of those questions that if we don't put anything in there, we don't get credit for this call. So, don't ask me why. I don't make these things up. Okay, hold on. That moderate. And this is a multi-unit apartment building, correct?
Yes.
It's not condos, is it?
No.
Okay. Okay. So this is harassment, an issue of harassment. Okay.
Yeah, they're basically refusing to do repairs.
Hold on. I just really need to complete this thing here.
Okay.
So we have a new part of this that I have to read to you, okay? It says this: by selecting I agree, I consent that the information I submitted in the form is accurate to the best of my knowledge, and the above statements are true and correct. I understand this information is subject to verification only by authorized HUD and or MOHCD staff. This was just put in literally today or yesterday, and I have to ask you if you agree with that.
Yeah, as far as I know. In other words, the only issue that I could possibly have with that is you said this is harassment, and as if you were filling out a space on that form, or an entry on that form.
Only a statement, sir, of what you told me.
No, I understand that. Again, if you would let me finish that thought, I just simply restated the fact. I didn't state my thought on that. The only issue that I would have on that is whether or not that fully encompasses everything. I'm not aware of that. You are. If you feel that it fully encompasses everything for the purposes of submitting that form, then then I believe there should be no issues.
Okay, great. These questions you may decline to answer. What is your gender?
Male.
Okay, and they want to know if that means bisexual, gay, questioning, unsure, straight, heterosexual. You may decline to answer.
I believe cis is the more appropriate.
Well, that's not a choice I have, so I have to give you the one too.
I guess straight.
Thank you.
That seems inappropriate nowadays, though.
Yeah. This is a question about how you define yourself ethnically.
I'm Puerto Rican, Latin, or Hispanic.
Yeah. So that means Caribbean, Central American, Mexican, South
Caribbean,
American, other Latino.
other Latino, I guess. Well, no, I mean, wait. So, is the selection first Hispanic or slash Latino? Is that the first?
Here's what they are. First of all, the first categories they ask you whether you're Latino or not, along with Asian, Indigenous, Black, Middle Eastern, Pacific Islander, white, or declined to state. When you said Puerto Rican, I went over and I put Latino. I checked that, and then I listed what popped up, which is Caribbean, Central American, Mexican, South American, or other Latino.
Caribbean.
Thank you. And we're almost done. Have you been, or are you now a veteran?
I'm sorry, what?
A veteran.
No, I have not. No, I have not. I have not enrolled.
You're not a senior, okay. Do you define yourself as disabled?
Yes, I am disabled.
Okay. And how long have you lived there?
Since January '99.
That's 23 years. Let's say, oh, you need 10. Okay, you're done. And do you receive one or more of the following? CalWorks, CalFresh.
CalFresh, I do.
Okay, hold on. Cash assistance linked to Medi-Cal, CALM.
No.
Cash assistance program for immigrants.
No, I don't. The only thing I get is CalFresh.
Okay, not Medi-Cal?
Oh, yes, well, I guess it's. I don't. I'll be honest. I've been looking for assistance on clarifying this, because I basically have Healthy San Francisco, but because I believe of my condition, Medi-Cal jumps in at some points, but I am not clear on that.
Here's what I'd recommend you do. Call 311.
Yeah, I've gone various routes. Unfortunately, there's still not a clear answer as to what is the difference between Healthy San Francisco and Medi-Cal, because as far as billing goes, they intertwine. So when this question is asked, it's difficult for me to answer. But let's just say yes, because as far as I know, I am in that system as well. So.
Okay, because I advise people who have low income or have employment issues to call up 311, tell them what your income is, tell them what your employment status, and if you're looking for any additional social support institutions out there that could help you. My experience with these people is that they're pretty good for a city agency. That's all I always tell people when they may not sure of what other possibilities exist. You can just let it go if it's not relevant, okay?
Yeah.
But your place is under local rent control, correct?
Yes, I believe so. Yep.
And what is the rent for that place?
To be quite honest, I'm not fully sure because of COVID, but I believe it's. Well, in the original lease is $550.
Okay, but the current. And how many bedrooms?
It's a studio.
Okay. And is the rent paid? Do you know the rent is actually paid to, what's on the first check that was ever written, for instance, or subsequently modified?
Because I go back I've lived here for so long. Do you just mean who the current landlord is?
Actually, it's who the money goes to.
Currently, yes. Hawthorne Stone.
Thank you. And they're the agent, correct?
They're listed as the landlord, I believe, in every court proceedings and other legal documents.
Okay, yeah. Have you ever called the rent board up, given them your address, and asked who the owner on record is?
No, I have not.
I strongly advise you to do that today or tomorrow, okay? And make sure that you write down the name of the person who answers the phone and what their title is, because they won't give it to you unless you ask.
Sure, I do. As far as I know, it is Hawthorne Stone.
Okay.
Because they're the ones, as you stated, there have been legal proceedings, and they're the ones who have initiated them. So,
Okay. But to me, that I'd only go with what they told you. So, okay. Hold on. Because that's the board that is, the rent board gets that information from the computer system that comes out of the Board of Assessors.
yeah, no, I have had, like I said, I lived here for a long time. I unfortunately lived under city apartments, which you said you've done this for 30 years. As far as I know, they were very notoriously known for their bad landlord-tenant practices. During that time, I needed to reach out to the rent board for a situation in which they were accusing me of non-payment that never even occurred. In other words, I had always paid. But that was a very different situation than the situation I'm in currently.
What I'd like to know is this. Could you tell me physically what form of harassment or forms of harassment, meaning, do they do it by phone? Do they do it by email? Do they do it in person?
Well, there's a few. So,
Multiple.
yeah, I mean, there's quite a bit. They've entered my apartment.
Hold on.
Without.
So there was no notice to the entry?
No, yeah, unauthorized entry to the apartment.
Hold on. I have to write this down. So. Okay, what else?
And then subsequently, kind of obstructing or hindering me being able to file the appropriate paperwork in court against the perpetrators simply by withholding their names. So in other words, just obstructing the ability to properly file legal paperwork to address issues.
How did he actually obstruct it?
They simply didn't provide the names, and so I can't do anything without knowing what their actual name is.
Ownership information, right?
No, and the maintenance workers who had unauthorized entry, I cannot file paperwork in any court against them without actually knowing their names. It's a kind of obstruction technique that people and companies use, because the only other way that I would be able to, if I had enough money for a lawyer and everything else, but otherwise.
How did you get that legal doctrine stated to you in writing?
I'm sorry, what do you mean?
You said that you couldn't file court action.
That's experience. That's not a legal doctrine. That's experience, and that's experience. You can go through it yourself if you want to. That's experience.
I'm asking how you learned of that.
That's experience. Again, that's experience.
Okay, what else? What other ways?
There is no other way to find that out. You find that out by experience.
You other kinds of harassment.
Oh, and so they're refusing to do repairs. Right now, I haven't had my water heater working for over 7-8 months, and it's related to the unauthorized entry as well. And again, as well as seemingly making negotiations for payments for with my mother, even though they've been informed that she has mental health issues, and I guess, taken financial advantage of her. That one,
That you don't have power of attorney?
no. And as a matter of fact, it's kind of one of the issues that's going on because, um, you know, supposedly everything's fine. They're one of the people who should be realistically more concerned about the fact that my mother has mental health issues because they're in a contract with her as well. But they're actually, making it difficult for me to even just address anything, which is also extremely odd.
I need to interrupt you. I need to understand why, if your name's on a lease, why they needed anything to do with her.
Because she's the financially responsible party. As I said to you previously, it's very easy. It should be very easy to understand. The way I reside here is completely dependent on her payment. So as far as realistically, and it's kind of one of those screwed up situations, and that's one of the reasons why I'm reaching out. As far as the landlord is concerned, I don't really matter one way or the other. It doesn't. They get their money no matter what. The only person that actually matters is my mother. And unfortunately, my mother like I said, is in a mental state that she doesn't understand that that's what they're taking advantage of, as well as the fact that, there's been COVID funds that have been paid. And because of her mental state, she's not able to clearly state to me what payments she's made. So I can't reconcile even on my own what the landlord has been paid or hasn't been paid. On top of that, the landlord is refusing to make repairs in the building.
I need to interrupt you.
Sure.
Have you ever filed an illegal rent increase against your landlord before the rent board?
As far as I know, this particular landlord has not done an illegal rent increase.
Well, wait a minute. Let me explain. You said to me that your mother's unable to provide proof of a history of a rent payment. Is that correct?
Yeah, sort of, yes.
Well, the way you can deal with that is to file an illegal rent increase.
Yeah, again, you're going off the rails here. There's two. That's not the priority. That's not the priority. Dude, I don't need you to finish. So, in other words, the priority is not to get to know if some kind of backwards way what payments my mother made. It's to stop the harassment that is happening by the landlord in making those arrangements with my mother in the first place. So that's the bigger priority. Those things have happened in the past. As you said, there's always going to be access to what happened in the past. Right now, we're trying to prevent a future that includes my hot water not working, the landlord still not replying to very important messages regarding the residency and the apartment and habitability issues of the apartment. Again, it's more about focusing on what needs to be focused on, which is right now there's repairs that haven't been made and there has been no responses from the landlord.
Do you have power of attorney?
Again, no, that's not. No.
Have you consulted an attorney over questions like this?
Again, that's why you're being reached out to.
We don't give legal advice, and I'm not a lawyer.
But this is part of the steps. So I don't know, again, I don't know why you're not understanding that. This is part of the steps. Again, this is kind of a weird question to be asking me, because if you said you've been doing this for 30 years, you understand that if there have been legal proceedings, as I have told you, there has been a lawyer assigned to the case. But again, because of COVID and things going back and forth, and there's I guess just you could put issues, kind of specific to the relationship with that lawyer. That's a different thing. I'm calling you because I saw a sign that says you don't need to live in San Francisco of a landlord harassing you, and that's what I'm living with. And so I understand and I'm thankful that you are including other things to do, but I am aware of those other things. Right now, I'm trying to just focus on one, which is what was advertised, which is that the landlord is harassing me, and I need someone to at least attempt to try to have that stopped.
Well, we don't. Okay, I'm going to define the Housing Rights Committee, how we were founded, and what our role is.
I don't need you to do that. Let's just go on with the form because that's one of the issues that you're not understanding. I have called.
You seem to want to get control of this conversation.
No, I would like to finish. I would just like to finish so we can follow up one other day.
You keep going on, and I'm trying to stop you at points where I can pick up things. Because there's a lot of territory you're covering.
I understand that. Again, so let's just, again, as you have tried to do, I obliged. Let's just try to move forward so we can at least finish this form.
Hold on. Well, I was asking you to list specific form of harassment.
And I guess I have. If you can review what you've.
Please let me finish, sir.
Sure, go ahead.
I'm asking you, are they writing her letters? Have they attempted to evict you, for instance?
Yes.
On the grounds that you're not, for instance, complying with the state of California's laws of what defines your tenancy?
Yes, apparently so. Again, they're not replying, so I don't have answers for this. When you're asking how they harassing me, again, the main way they're harassing me is by not answering any questions.
Okay, all right. So, generally speaking, the way we focus tenants is on the rent board's ability to step in when there, for instance, are repair issues like the hot water. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the way we do that is we have a special program called COP, Code Enforcement Outreach Program. The way that works is simply this: you write your landlord a letter. You say you have a history of communications over this subject. I need to know specifically what are you going to do and when you're going to do it to fix the lack of hot water in my apartment. You need to give me a reply by a certain date. This is how this COP program works.
So I've already done that.
You've used our program?
No, I've already contacted the landlord, set a specific date, and they haven't replied. So I can forward those emails or whatever you need for that.
I really need you to hear the last of what I was about to explain how this program works.
Okay.
This program works when you call up our office, the same counseling line you called to get me to call you, and you ask for Stephanie to call you back. Stephanie is the coordinator for our part of this program.
And you're not able to do that. In other words, you're not able to coordinate that during this phone call because.
This is how the program works.
Okay, so that's cool. Let's finish this particular phone call that I'm dealing with you. Unless that you're trying to imply that. I mean, I guess what are you trying to imply?
I'm listing here, when you were describing to me the issues of harassment, my reaction to that was, well, we have ways of dealing with situations like that.
Yeah, that's fine. Again, it would seem more appropriate to finish the form rather than stopping every single time, simply because some of these things have been addressed. And as you said, there are people in different departments that can address those at that time. In other words, it would be more appropriate to finish the form and then later on, it's like, oh, okay, actually, let's talk to Stephanie.
The problem I'm having is time, that you're not simply giving me simple, 3 words, failure to answer, failure to repair heat.
No, you're not writing that down. Again, one of the things that's happening is you're not simply stating what has been written down so that I can know what you already know and how you wrote it and then move on. Again, that could be it right there. There's 2 things. They're failing to do repairs and they're failing to respond to emails or inquiries. Those 2 things. That's how they're, third, they are making financial arrangements with someone who is on the lease, but they have been advised has mental health issues.
is technically your mother a co-signee?
We've already been over this. Like I said, you yourself said that you believe that the name would be financial obligator. I also believe that that is the name that is listed on the lease. Either way, the reason she is on the lease, again, as explained, is because she is the person responsible for the payments. That was done because when I moved in, I had no rental history whatsoever and not even a job because I was in college. And so that way, the landlord would always be ensured that no matter what happens, even if I died today, the landlord would get its money.
Yeah, and the problem I'm having is I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah, no one's asking you to be, but you keep attempting to be.
Actually,
But you're attempting to be. You literally, it's already been determined that what you would write down on the form is my mother is the financially responsible party on the lease. You can say it with all those words, or you could just say it in 2 words: is the financial obligator.
okay, what else?
You're the one filling out the form.
No, this is where I'm listing the specific harassment.
Yeah, like I said, you're having me unnecessarily repeat myself. I've already stated those 3 things. They are refusing to reply to emails or communications. They have refused to do repairs, and they are negotiating financial payments with a person listed on the lease who they know has mental health issues, seemingly taking advantage of that situation and harassing me at the same time.
So that's I'm done with. Hold on for a moment. So my and to the best I can come up with as to what you can do about this is file an illegal rent increase with the rent board, and in that letter, in a cover letter, ask for an audit of your rent history.
Again, that doesn't solve the main issue. So that's fine. Again, this is what's a very odd situation. You're making it seem as if other people need to review things, and yet you're coming up to conclusions all on your own. I honestly am not interested in just your opinion. What I am interested in is finding help. Your opinion isn't help. And so that's where I'm at with this. It seems extremely odd. Wait. It seems extremely odd for me to spend this amount of time speaking to you on the phone, filling out a form, just to have you give me your opinion. What are you going to do with that form?
I explained that to you.
You're submitting it to who?
It goes into our office. Our office takes the statistics that are in there and sends them to the mayor's office of housing.
And that's all you do with that form?
That is correct.
And
except for the repair issue with that program I was telling you about. There's one more thing that I'd like to explain to you.
so, wait a second. So, in other words, I don't need to hear anything else from you. Why can't you just coordinate, as I said previously, so now that I've been on the phone with you for all this time, coordinate so that Stephanie could be the one who calls me? Since apparently there was no reason for you to be calling me, as I'm being harassed, you can't address the fact that I'm being harassed. Wait, no, let's review this situation. I called a phone number in which I am being harassed. You cannot address me being harassed, but you can address a repair issue. Is that correct?
And you are nothing but arguing with me over the way
I'm not arguing with you. I'm trying to get some clarity on this situation that seemed.
over me, sir.
No, you're not listening to me. I'm trying to get clarity.
I am listening to exactly what you're saying.
Okay, so what am I saying? I
explained to you that we have a program, and you cut me off before I can finish.
because I understand the program. Again, it's offensive for you to believe that I somehow don't understand that you have a different program. I am trying to get clarity on this situation, which is, again, for some reason it was advertised that if someone is receiving harassment from their landlord, they should call this number. Again, you're stating what you believe and what you know to be the truth. Understand that I also exist in the world and have had experiences, and I'm stating to you what they are. And my experience is that there is an ad on a public transportation in San Francisco that says, but you keep cutting me off because that's a very important part.
Show you what choices you have.
I understand that that's what you're doing now. I am trying to get to an understanding as to why it's taken this amount of time to get to that point. And so we need to kind of review what's happened, because you're giving me choices. You're giving me choices, not solutions. And what was advertised was a solution. In other words, the advertising doesn't say, hey, if you're being harassed by your landlord, call this phone number, talk to them for 30 minutes, and they'll give you choices on what to do. And so that is a little confusing. Do you understand that?
That's my job to tell you what that means, and I told you.
I'm sorry, what your job is to tell me what means?
What we do.
Again, I understand what you do. You've explained that. I am trying to relate that to the advertisement that has your phone number.
I can't help you because that's in your head. I'm just telling you.
So what do you mean it's in my head? That's an actual real advertisement that exists. It says, if you're being harassed, call this phone number. And what you're explaining is what you do is not address if you're being harassed.
That's your interpretation, sir.
No. I mean, well, then what's your solution to me being harassed?
I've tried to explain to you different things you can do.
But none of them include you. In other words, none of them include the phone number that I was called.
Well, you interpreted what that means, and I'm explaining to you what we do.
What do you mean I'm interpreting? I'm not interpreting anything. The phone number says to call if I'm being harassed. Yeah. I've called you, and you're saying, hey, we don't really deal with that. You have to call these other people. And I'm just trying to make sense of that.
We are a self-help organization.
Then why are you there? In other words, well, then why are you calling? There's no self-help on this, because I understand the solution to this. It's a very simple solution. The solution is to reach out to the landlord and at least attempt to figure out what they are thinking or what they're doing, since they're being silent. That's a very simple solution. It's actually trying to do anything. Right now, what has happened is I've spoken to you on the phone for at least 20 to 30 minutes after seeing an advertisement that says, if you're being harassed by your landlord, call this phone number. And now what you're telling me is just call all these other people, including someone who apparently works in your office. And I'm asking you, can you just please coordinate that? And you have continued on this phone call instead of just coordinating.
You never let me finish explaining how this program works.
Again, I don't need to understand how it works if you've already explained that someone else would be the appropriate party to work for.
I have not finished explaining that program, sir, and I resent you.
Do you mean the code of ethics?
I said to you that we have a program that deals with people who need help with landlords who don't provide services.
Yes. And you said that the person's name was Stephanie, and that they would be the ones who would be able to handle that. And at this point in time...
You let me finish explaining how this program works. This program has a contract with the Department of Building Inspection, and the purpose of the program is to try and keep inspectors from doing things that can be done in other ways by, for instance, pressuring the landlord to make the repairs.
Yes, I understand that.
And it is based on the letter that you send with a reply date on it describing the problem and saying, what are you going to do? When are you going to do it? When that date passes and you either have not received a reply at all or received an inadequate reply, you call up you send an email to our office and ask Stephanie to call you. Stephanie, well, actually what you do is Stephanie's going to ask you to transmit a copy of that letter to her.
Yes, again, you're repeating things that we've already been through. Again, I've already requested the landlord to do repairs. The date has already passed. As I said, I can provide that information. As you said, Stephanie should be the person who called me. As has already been said many times, why can't you just please coordinate so that Stephanie can call me? You are aware of the fact that Stephanie would be the appropriate person.
It is based on your telling Stephanie that you have the letter that you sent the landlord and you want to transmit.
That's what I am doing currently right now. I am trying to tell Stephanie. I do realistically, again, trying to figure out why you feel as if it is necessary for me to have to hang up the phone, call a phone number back again, leave a message just for Stephanie, when the fact is you seem to work with Stephanie, you know how to contact Stephanie, and you understand the fact that I am ready to speak to Stephanie because two of the steps that you've already mentioned have already been, that need to be completed, have already been previously completed.
Because one thing, it's her job as a part of this program to do this step, to make contact with you, to communicate with you, to be sure that whatever comes out of this program you are aware of. So she plays a pivotal role. She meets with an apartment owners association in San Francisco.
Again, I don't need Stephanie's resume. I just need Stephanie to call me. Can you do that?
I will send Stephanie an email asking her to call you. Okay?
Thank you.
And she can explain or answer any questions and particularly explain how this program works. As I said.
Yeah, nobody needs to explain programs. People need to actually work. As Kim Kardashian said, nobody wants to work. You definitely should fucking understand that shit. Get up and fucking work.
I'm going to hang up on you, sir.
Yeah, good. Bye.